Adrian, thank you so much for coming today and talking about the great work that you've done at Coffey and enlighten us on your journey. Now, when did your journey start and what was your starting point?
Our client base is a driver. We've Maze, Skanska and a lot of big companies. We work for Strong, Alpine, all the big boys in the industry really. And it's in the PQQs and what you're doing and how you can support them on their journey. And we were, sort of playing up to that kind of thing. But it got to a point around about COVID where there was a commitment, and so we pledged to net zero, So that was sanctioned by our group managing director. And it coincided kind of during that COVID period. And I was identified as a person within the business that could work from home. So I saw that's handy. I'm working on a carbon reduction plan at the moment, implemented it, and within months we were seen as exemplars by the likes of Maze and Skanska for what we were doing. We were already doing some good stuff anyway, but that was just a starting point, So we had to have a sort of a footprint and a baseline, and that's where CompareYourFootprint come in terms of establishing that. So that was great because you need that baseline to monitor and progress. So from there, we really went into gear then. So produced a policy. The policy was sanctioned and signed off by the board of directors. And then we started implementing the strategy. So
I was going to ask you, what motivated a change and what influenced your path? Regulation, accreditation, peer pressure, public?
It's really the client base, really.
Right.
I'm all for future-proofing the business, and I see that. And so it was a no-brainer in that sense. We really had to support the likes of Mace and what they were doing, and the government, of course, and the construction industry, has to sort of bow down to the government and meet, with the pressures that the government applied to businesses, etc. It really needs to happen. So, so we produced a policy and we went into strategy, etc., implementing the plan. But then it was all about dissemination. We need to get directors on board. So I suggested to the board of directors, you need to do a workshop. So we're corporate partners with the Supply Chain Sustainability School. We did a 3-hour workshop with Dr. James Cadman. And it really sent home the message as to what the board of directors need to understand and to be seen to be party to, because it needs to disseminate down through the ranks, through the senior project teams, down to the foot soldiers on the ground with toolbox tools, etc., to develop this ethos within the business. Yeah. So that all went very well. And then, to take it further, we formed a carbon reduction steering group because we wanted to have a group within the department to look at what we can do, how we can implement things, plant innovation, all that kind of stuff. And we had quarterly meetings to review what needs to be done, So a lot of good stuff came out of that. We invested 2.8 million in eco-friendly plant, and that's all gone down very well. But the thing is, you have to monitor, and a good way of monitoring for us was using something called a spider graph. So what you do is you identify the metrics you're trying to deliver on your strategy, and then you use like a stepping stone rag system to monitor your progression. So it might start off, it's like playing a guitar. If you wanted to play Cavatina, you can start off with learning how to play a G chord and F minor or something like that, and then work up to Cavatina, but have that gradual progression and apply that to all the different metrics associated to what you're trying to achieve. And with the spider graph, go to the next tab and you can see where you were and where you are, and it's a great way of identifying how you're progressing.
You wouldn't tell that you play the guitar. What is your goal, and has it changed? Do you review it constantly? What's
I look at strategies for the business. I look to improve the business with strategies such as equality, diversity, inclusion, which isn't so much what we're talking about here today, but ESG plays a big part, with environmental social governance. And I recently had to do a presentation to out NatWest Bank, who provide funds and stuff for the business, and the climate change register was something I produced to demonstrate that we are looking forward thinking, seeing what is happening, how it can affect, because you talk about your tier 1 contractors and you look at concrete supply, for instance, and you have a massive winter where everything's frozen and your project dies for 3 or 4 months because you can't get your concrete supply, etc. That's going to have a massive impact on your business. So you have to sort of foresee what's going to come at you by way of risk and put a value against it and mitigate it as best you can. But as I say, going back to your question, it's all about strategies with me, and I think environmental social governance is going to play a massive part. At the moment, we're on our 3rd draft of our ESG report, and we've gone, where we will go, really sort of publish the disclosures that you have to do. We base it on the Global Reporting Initiative, so we're doing it properly.
What would you say your biggest challenges were?
Directors. So they've built this great business, a 200 million turnover. No, but as I say, it's getting them on board, and I think I've hounded them enough to have that. I'll go public on that one. They know that I try and drive it in the business, and because at the end of the day, I want to leave a legacy. I've got probably 4 or 5 more years in the business. Chris, who joins me today, he's going to be taking over from me at some point, and I want to be able to say to my kids and my grandchildren, I did what I could.
Yeah.
For the business, it's as simple as that. So if I leave some sort of legacy, I'll be delighted.
And bringing people on your journey, who have you had to bring on? How have you brought them on? You've talked about toolbox talks. Yeah. You've talked about talking to the directors, but giving us.
I'm glad you asked me that, because one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I want to speak to you later on, Phil, is I've just introduced and implemented a green skills initiative. And there's a great paper out which Deloitte have produced, which is a sort of blueprint for green skilling your business, and it's all about all the different departments within the business understanding, the commercial, the engineering. They all think we're tree huggers and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, they need to be on board with us and understand that what's good for business is environmental issues and sustainability, etc., which wins business, And the ESG isn't about green investment in us as a business, but it's more so for the likes of Mace, who are a multi-billion pound global company, letting their investors see that their tier 1 contractors are on board with them, So what we've done is I've produced a free learning pathways through the Supply Chain Sustainability School. We were collaborating with them. So you're going from beginning, middle and advanced. We're corporate partners with IEMA as well, and so we've got affiliate memberships that we're going to give to people who complete the 3 levels of education, if you like. And those who do that and show that commitment, we will then say we'll offer them an IEMA, which is a professional qualification, and we'll pay for it, So that way they can see that by getting involved, progressing with this, this knowledge, that they can actually attain a professional qualification at the end of it.
Brilliant. And is the sustainability agenda fully integrated into the decision-making process in every part of the business?
At the end of the day, if we have the ESG on board, we have, all the stuff that we do by way of strategies, etc., that's going to win more work, and they're going to want to work with us. It's the report writing or reporting that we have to do. For these databases for Mace, Skanska, ISG, through McAlpine, etc., is phenomenal. My department's fast becoming an admin department in terms of what we're doing. And I've been in the industry 50 years actually next year. And I was on board with the industry before this, the Health and Safety Act came in, and there was none of this data reporting or anything like it, and it's just paperwork at the moment, So that's a challenge as well for the business.
Yeah. And who are your support team? So you must have. Do you have internal people helping you? External? Who helps you with this?
I do. Or Chris, for one person, who's joined us this evening. He doesn't know what he's taking on yet, but that's another story. But I've got a small team of people working with us. But I engage a lot with my peers, with Sir McAlpine, Mace. A great colleague of mine is Brian Moon, who heads up the Net Zero for Mace. And so I'm constantly in touch with them. What we can do. We send out client feedback questionnaires. We need to be transparent, tell us what we're not doing right or what we're doing wrong or whatever, and then we can improve on it. And it's all about continued improvement.
We've talked a lot about collaboration prior. Do you find or feel there is collaboration within the construction industry?
There could be more. I suggested to Mace, I came up with this, again, another initiative, and I called it TINZA, Tier 1 Net Zero Alliance. And I said, why don't we just get together with your Careys, your Mitchelsons and all the Tier 1 contractors and sit around the table and talk about best practice, what are you doing, what are we doing, and sort of avoid that sort of commercial competitiveness, because we're all in this together, J. Coffey can't do it on our own, and we need to be talking to the likes of Careys and what are you doing and sort of do the same kind of stuff. And also I've challenged Mace on this. I said, it's all very well you tell us to use, you specify what materials we use, but you're the client, your Landsecs and your British Land, their client design teams need to tell us what to use, and they need to do the heavy load in terms of understanding the green specification that's out there and recommend, and we're all on the same on the ballpark then, So yes, it is a challenge. We're looking at perhaps going to Concrete Zero, which is another initiative that's out there.
And that'll help with the peer pressure, won't it?
It will.
So, you've talked about how hard it has been for messaging. Have you got any advice to businesses on how to message?
Yes.
I'm sure you've learned a lot.
I did a presentation once to the Duke's Education, and the thing I applied there, and these were a load of principals and directors, etc., who knew nothing or very little about sustainability. And I suggested that they should apply nudge theory. So if you're trying to get someone to do something or build that culture and that ethos within the business, it's to use the EAST framework in terms of make it easy, make it attractive, make it social, and make it timely. Now, a practical example of that would be, or in the presentation that I did, was two posters. Imagine two posters in a kitchen, and one poster has got a pair of eyes looking at you, and underneath it's got 2p for a tea bag, 3p for a bit of milk, 5p for some sugar, right? And there's a sort of charity tin there, an honesty tin, whatever you call it. And the other poster had just flowers on the top. So I said to everybody, which would you, what would drive you to do or, put the money in the tin? And they all said, the eyes looking at you because he felt guilty. So I said, there's obviously a lot of Catholics in the room here today. But it's an example of what you can do to just nudge people. Looking at a parent walking on the beach, picking up plastic on the beach, you see it. It's easy to do, it's attractive, you engage with your child, and it ticks that box, it sort of twigs that nerve inside you, think, I should do something like that maybe,
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, thank you.